Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Gray and I will be presenting on scaffolding instruction. So what is scaffolding instruction? Well, the definition of scaffolding relates to breaking learning into manageable chunks, providing tools or activities, structures with each chunk. Scaffolding is actually what you do first with the students before they even approach a task. So you are preparing them for what is to come, and eventually they will chunk all of the different bits of knowledge together. So take a look at the screen right now. On the left, we see a student or a learner that has no idea how to reach their learning outcome or their goal. So say this is playing a B-flat major scale, or singing a B-flat major scale. The student on the left has no idea how to reach that goal. On the right, we see the, let's say, music educator in this situation has properly scaffolded different points of learning. So perhaps the first step up was, well, the student first needs to know how to sit and breathe properly. The next step, the student needs to put the instrument together. And then all of the steps in between, what it is from opening a case, a instrument case, all the way to playing a scale. So scaffolding learning is this step-by-step way to teach a particular concept. Now that can mean that a task might not be completed in a single lesson. You might only get a very small chunk of the way there, or you can try to make the task more manageable. Perhaps it's just opening the case for the very first time during a class period. So scaffolding can be used overall in an entire unit, or half year of instruction, or it can be boiled down to as small as what are these students going to do, these specific activities they're going to participate and accomplish within 10, 20 minutes. What's important too about the right side of the screen is that we see there is feedback and assessment along the way. So each step, the student is receiving feedback and is being assessed based on their behavior or what they are demonstrating. So this is very much a hand-holding, student-focused way of teaching, and for the students to really meaningfully learn each piece of information that we're presenting. So here are the specific steps of scaffolding. So let's first take our example of a concert B-flat major scale. Now we want students eventually to get to this goal, but what are some small steps that they need to accomplish in the meantime? Well, let's say that students need to be able to open up their instrument case. So let's start with that. The teacher would first model how to open the case. So visually they would show the student, here's the case, here's how we put it on the floor, the latches go up, the zippers unzip. So being very thoughtful and methodical about how you are visually showing the students how to complete a task. Now, this is also about pre-teaching certain terms or strategies. So this could mean students might not know the word latch or zipper, so we might need to teach them what those terms mean. Also with visual aids, now what we do as music educators tends to be very visual, at least in the instrumental world and in the vocal world as well. So having some sort of visual aid so that the students can see what they need to accomplish. Step number 2 is student application or student activities. So once they have seen you do, as the educator, the task at hand, the students need many opportunities to practice this. This is a great opportunity for students to utilize prior knowledge. So what have they learned in your class previously, as well as what do they know in general? What do they bring to the table, and how can we form new knowledge based on what they already know? Over time, the scaffolding or the how much support you are giving the students will fade into the background. So once the students have demonstrated a certain level of knowledge, you, as the educator, slowly are releasing the control so that the students can become the driver, like put in the driver's seat of their own education and of their knowledge. And finally, at the end, this is when the student masters the skill. Now, for our example of the concert B-flat major scale, that absolutely will not happen in a single lesson with a beginning student. But there are small steps, small activities, thinking of a overall long-term learning goal. And how can you, it's almost like backwards learning, right? What are the small steps that you can take, the activities, how can you support them to get to that ultimate goal in the future? So a learning theory that is very closely tied with scaffolding is Vygotskys Zone of Proximal Development. Now, there are a few different zones going on in here. There's the zone of what the learner can already do before they come to you. So this is the zone of actual development, what they currently can do without the assistance of the educator. The next goal is the zone of proximal development. So what can that student do with the assistance of somebody that has more expertise? So in our situation, in music education, that would be what the music educator can teach them. Now there's also another ring on this bullseye that is the learner cannot do yet. So Vygotsky also said that there's another ring or zone of development where the student will not be able to do these things, demonstrate these concepts, even with the support of an educator. Now, I put the word ... yet because I think over time, eventually, the students will be able to demonstrate certain skills. So I just wanted to add that own little bit into there. Now, what's important about the zone of proximal development is that this is where the scaffolding occurs. So as the students and the teachers work together, this is where the scaffolding is happening. So again, we're trying to bridge that gap between what can the learner do by themselves and what can they do with the assistance of educators. Something important to know with this is that this is where we are developing independent learners. So what can we teach the students? How can we teach in a way for the students to eventually be able to tackle these concepts or new concepts they've never seen before on their own in the future, because we won't always be there to help them. So I wanted to find an example, a music scaffolding example, but I couldn't really find a good one online about music. So I'm actually using an example from one of my teaching videos. I'm always looking for feedback, so if y'all have any feedback about what you see, I'd love to see it. But really, I wanted to make sure that this was a music-specific example. So scaffolding, this is a video showing scaffolding in a virtual setting. So you're going to see specifically how I scaffold keeping the students engaged while watching a music-related video. So in this first part, you will see I am pre-teaching, I am gaining their focus and focusing in on the specific terms they should be watching for. So take a look. We're going to watch a short video today. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're talking about the main elements of music. Because we'll be making music later today, we need to identify what some of these main elements of music are. So while you are listening to this short video, I want you to think of these things. Take a look at the key terms: tempo, rhythm, and melody. Okay? So we're thinking about tempo, rhythm, and melody, and they will pop up on the screen too. Okay? So take a look at this video. All right, so before they even start watching the video, this could be considered the pre-teach or focusing attention phase of scaffolding. You're giving the students something to zone into, what's the main idea that students should be focusing on. Next, we're going to see, so they've watched the video now, and now you're going to listen to students talking about the responses to these different terms that I asked them to listen for. We talked about these things last year. Can someone unmute themselves and tell us what does tempo mean? That first word, what's tempo? What's tempo mean? If you can't unmute yourself, you can always type it into the chat.
The speed at which a passage of music is or should be played.
Hey, thank you, Lanai. That sounds like a textbook definition if I've heard one. So it took a little bit for the students to start participating. Of course, we're in a virtual setting. Who knows how many internet connectivity issues we have on a day-to-day basis. But students starting to participate and share out what they remember from the video is an example of student application. So students participating in the actual activity. So after the students then talk about all of the terms, we watch the video again. And then in this clip, you will hear me reiterating, reinforcing what those definitions mean in slightly different terms. The video. Again, just to remind you, tempo is how fast or slow music can be. So we heard the tempo be about this. You can walk easily to that tempo. Rhythm, that's... Now I go through all of the different definitions. We don't need to watch that right now, but there's this constant cycle of the teacher explaining, the students participating in different activities. And then finally, towards the end of this teaching example, I won't play the video, but you can see on the screen, the students then participated in a matching terms activity. So this is yet another level, another way for the students to actively participate. Now, this is an example of me letting go of control because this was a brief reminder of what these definitions meant, and then the students go into matching the terms. So I'm not holding their hand anymore. Now it's time you have to be able to match the definitions. So there's just a quick video there. So finally, here are some points to consider about scaffolding overall. So the activities should have meaningful questions. So it's really important to formulate what critical thinking questions you would like to ask your students. So in my example, if I would have asked, so does everyone understand melody, tempo, and rhythms? Yes? Cool. That wouldn't be what would be considered meaningful, right? So meaningful questioning, probing for knowledge, for answers, is asking the students to go beyond yes or no. They're explaining, they're putting it into different contexts. Collaboration is a big element to scaffolding. So even in a virtual setting, you can go into breakout rooms in face-to-face. They can work in small groups. So students need the opportunity to discuss and collaborate with each other. More likely than not, they will understand concepts a little bit better when they're hearing different ways that their peers are thinking. And then finally, this is probably the hardest part about scaffolding for teachers. We really want to help our students succeed. We don't want to see them fail. So oftentimes we hold on to the reins, we hold on to control, when really we need to slowly be letting go of control so that the students can be the drivers of their own learning. And finally, here are my references that I used for the presentation. I look forward to your feedback, and have a nice night.